Hi there, my name is Tabitha. I did my research project on the Mapuche people of Chile. I'm first going to go and do some background information on them, talk a bit about the culture, and then when the Spanish invaded, and then how that left them after. I'm also going to be doing some parallels with the Indigenous people of Canada as well during my presentation. So in the first slide here, you can see the Mapuche flag on the left side in the picture, and the Chile flag in the right-hand side. The Mapuche people speak Mapudungun, um, and in this language, Mapu directly translates to of the land, and Che translates to people. So Mapuche directly translates to people of the land. The Mapuche population is quite large, consisting of roughly over 2 million people in Chile and roughly 200,000 in Argentina. And in Chile, half of the population, they live in the capital, which is Santiago, and the other half are scattered throughout Chile. And in the map here, you can see Chile is that long, skinny country on the west coast of South America, next to Argentina. And the Mapuche people actually also inhabited Argentina as well for a little while. So the Mapuche people, they hunted, fished, and farmed. They did lots of fishing actually because they were right on the coast. Things that they farmed included corn, beans, squash, potatoes, chili, peppers, and other vegetables. They used and still use guinea pigs for meat. Llamas were known as pack animals in Mapuche culture, and they also provided wool. A man's wealth was actually measured in how many llamas he owned. Like the Indigenous people of Canada, the Mapuche had chiefs, which they called caciques. The chiefs' duties were different than those of the Indigenous groups of Canada. Their duties included organizing activities such as dances and feasts. Another parallel to the Indigenous people of Canada is that the Mapuche people held healing ceremonies. A machi, which is always a woman, was an expert in medicinal herbs and trained by a former machi. In the pictures here on the left-hand side, that is a machi woman, and on the right-hand side is a cacique. The Mapuche people were and still are very artistic. They did lots of metal and woodwork. A lot of their metal they used to make traditional Mapuche jewelry, which they still make to this day. They're also very musical. They use horns, bells, drums, and flutes, but not like the ones that we know in North America. Theirs are quite unique versions that you can only find in South America. So the first contact with the Spanish was in the 1530s. Pedro de Valdivia arrived in Chile from Peru and established Santiago in 1541. His goal was to have complete control over all of Chile. As in Canada, the settlers wanted to take the land from the Mapuche, but because the Mapuche were such a big group of people and resisted, this went on for over 300 years. The Spanish attempted to take over a mountain range south of Biobío River with the goal to use the Mapuche people as free labor to mine for gold, which did happen to a certain extent but was not as successful as they would have liked. And the picture in this slide, that is Pedro de Valdivia. And actually in the war that happened in 1550 to 1598, the Mapuche people within the first couple years were able to murder Pedro de Valdivia. And although the war continued on for a number of years, there were periods of time where the Mapuche people were not as active because of disease and scarcity of food. They were, though, successful in destroying some of the cities founded by the Spanish. The Mapuche did end up having to adapt their lifestyle in order to have new tactics in order to fight against the Spanish, such as using horses, shields, and helmets in fort building, mostly inspired by the ways of the Spanish from what they saw them do. The Jesuits arrived to Chile in 1593. They had little success in Christianizing the Mapuche people at first. And even though the Spanish crown made the slavery of Mapuche people illegal, after the Mapuche people defeated the 7 cities founded by the Spanish, it did become legal to keep the Mapuche prisoners from war as slaves. The church justified keeping them as slaves because the Mapuche people would not conform to Christianity. So the legalization of slavery did end again, but not until 1683. So as a part of their resistance, they didn't take new culture introduced by the Spanish as kind of a cultural resistance. The only things that they did really adapt from the Spanish were the use of horses and wheat crops. But because of the climate in Chile, the wheat crops were not as successful and used as their other sources of crops and farming. In the mid-1800s, the Mapuche and Spanish started to coexist, and lots of Chile was inhabited by Chileans, which were now half Mapuche, half Spanish. Mapuche land started to be bought by non-Mapuche people, and there was designated land that the Mapuche owned and the Spanish were not allowed to touch. And then German settlers arrived to the south of Chile in about the mid-1850s. And the Mapuche fought these towns. It only lasted for a year, or a little bit less, actually. And a peace proposal was offered by the German settlers, which the Mapuche agreed to, and it resulted in a deal that stated that the Mapuche chiefs had to agree on any land handovers among the Germans moving forward. And then in the late 1800s, because of the conflicts between Argentina and the Mapuche, so Argentina was also trying to get the Mapuche to leave their land, and they were pushing them towards Chile, mostly into Araucanía, which is one of the designated places for the Mapuche people. And this conflict caused the Chileans to fight back against the Argentinians and the Mapuche people in order to try to keep their land. And then this was the end of the Mapuche independence. This was also a time when the Mapuche population in Chile really decreased. It went from about 500,000 people to 25,000. This left a lot of Mapuche people in poverty. A lot of them became homeless, and the ones that did still have their land, they were really limited to the amount of land that they had to be able to farm on after this war. This picture says "Libertad a los presos políticos mapuches," which translates to "free the Mapuche political prisoners." And this is actually pretty recent, as there are still protests going on today. So in recent history and currently, the Mapuche remain part of the lowest class in Chile, as Chile is an extremely classist society. Although few practice their old traditions, most of their culture has been lost. The Chilean government has recently tried to address these issues that are symptoms of the Spanish settlers by teaching minority indigenous languages in school. But like Canada, there is so much that needs to be done in order to turn the situation around. Indigenous people to this day are protesting for their rights in Chile through street art and also by burning down forest industry vehicles, who are still taking more of their land even though they aren't supposed to be anymore. And lots of these protesting acts are seen as terrorism, so they're being thrown into jail for doing this. So one of the reasons I was compelled to write about the Mapuche people is because I was able to go to Chile in the beginning of 2018 to meet my fiance's family, who still live there. And I did get to see a lot of the poverty firsthand, which was really hard. So it was really interesting for me to do this research project and hit it close to home. And I also wanted to show you guys, these are goat's nails, And these are one of the Mapuche instruments, one of the unique ones that I was talking about. I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation.